The council chamber was enormous. It floated in space, a massive ring of metal and glass that circled a dying star. Inside, representatives from 57 different species sat in their designated areas. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some stood on legs, others floated in tanks of liquid. But today they all shared one common goal. They wanted humanity gone. Taman sat in the human section with his hands folded on the desk in front of him. He was a thin man with graying hair and calm eyes. Next to him, Yuna typed quietly on her datapad, recording everything that was being said. On his other side, Jiwoo leaned back in his chair, watching the other delegates with an unreadable expression. The speaker at the center podium was a Velthari named Velcor. His species looked like tall insects, with 4 arms and crystalline eyes that reflected light in strange ways. He gestured dramatically as he spoke. "For too long, we have tolerated humanity's aggressive behavior," Velcor said. His translator turned his clicking sounds into clear words. "They insert themselves into conflicts that do not concern them. They expand their territory without respect for established borders. They militarize every system they touch." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. A representative from the Kryn species, who looked like a floating jellyfish with tentacles, pulsed with approval. Several of the crystalline Borkan delegates tapped their appendages against their desks in their version of applause. Taman did not move. He just watched and listened. Another delegate stood up. This one was from the Thulian collective, a species that resembled upright salamanders with bioluminescent skin. Just last cycle, human forces intervened in the Outer Reach disputes. They were not invited. They were not requested. Yet they came with their warships and their soldiers, and they imposed their will on sovereign species. "We were responding to a distress call," Jiwoo said quietly, but his voice carried through the chamber's acoustics. "From 3 colony ships that were being attacked by raiders. 2,000 civilians were in danger." "That was not your decision to make," the Thulian delegate shot back. "The Outer Reach has its own security forces. Your presence was an act of aggression." More murmurs, more tapping, more pulses of light from species expressing agreement. Yuna continued typing, her face blank. She had seen this coming for months. The other species had been coordinating, building their case, preparing for this moment. A small delegate from the Kirin species spoke next. The Kirin looked like furry rodents that walked upright, but they were brilliant engineers and held significant influence. "Humanity has only been part of this council for 43 years. In that time, they have caused more disruption than any species in the past 3 centuries. They question our traditions. They challenge our laws. They refuse to accept the way things have always been done." "Perhaps the way things have always been done needs to be questioned," Taman said softly. He stood up, and the chamber quieted slightly. "We have never hidden our nature. From the first day we joined this council, we told you who we were. We are problem solvers. We are builders and defenders. When we see injustice, we act. That is what our species does." "Exactly," Velcor said, his crystalline eyes gleaming. "You act without thinking of consequences. You disrupt the careful balance that has kept peace in this galaxy for millennia. You are dangerous." The vote was called. Each species had 1 vote, weighted by their population and territory. The massive display screen at the front of the chamber lit up as the votes came in. Yes, yes, yes. The votes to expel humanity kept coming. Some species voted quickly, others took time to deliberate. But the pattern was clear. When the final count appeared, 51 species had voted to remove humanity from the Galactic Council. Only 6 had voted against it. The 6 were smaller species, ones that humanity had helped over the years. They looked uncomfortable now, glancing at the human delegation with something like guilt or sadness. The chamber erupted in sounds, clicking, pulsing, humming, the various ways different species expressed satisfaction. Some seemed relieved. Others seemed triumphant. A few of the delegates who had voted to keep humanity looked down at their desks, not celebrating. Taman stood again. The chamber gradually quieted as delegates turned their attention to him. Everyone expected anger. They expected protests or threats or desperate pleas to reconsider. "We understand," Taman said. His voice was steady and clear. "The Galactic Council has made its decision through proper democratic process. Humanity accepts this outcome." Velcor seemed almost disappointed. He had been prepared for a fight, for drama. "You have 30 standard days to remove all human presence from Council facilities and terminate all treaties established under Council authority." "We will need 90 days, Jiwoo said. "We have personnel and equipment spread across 47 systems. We will do this properly and safely." The Council chamber filled with clicking discussions. Finally, Velcor nodded. 90 days, but not 1 day more." "Thank you," Taman said. He gathered his papers and looked at Yuna and Jiwoo. "We're done here." The three humans stood and walked toward the exit. The chamber was mostly silent now. Some delegates watched them go. Others had already started discussing what this meant for various trade agreements and territorial disputes. As they reached the door, Taman paused and turned back. "We want to thank the Council for the 43 years of membership. We learned a great deal. We hope you find the peace you are looking for." Then they were gone. The doors closed behind them with a soft hiss. In the chamber, Velcor felt a strange sensation. It took him a moment to identify it. Unease. The humans had not fought. They had not argued or begged or shown any emotion at all. They had simply accepted the decision and left. That seemed wrong somehow, but he pushed the feeling away. Humanity was gone. The Council was safe now. Everything would return to normal. He had no idea how wrong he was. The withdrawal began the next morning. All across the galaxy, human forces received the same simple message: pack up, terminate all contracts, come home. On the frontier world of Kelmar 7, Minji stood in her office and looked out at the colony below. She had been the administrator here for 6 years. The colony housed 12,000 people, mostly human, but also about 2,000 aliens from various species. They had built something good here: schools, hospitals, farms that produced food for 3 nearby systems. Her communicator buzzed. It was the final list of what needed to be done. Shut down the fusion reactor, transfer the medical supplies, close the trade depot, pack everything that belonged to humanity and leave everything else behind. "How long do we have?" her assistant asked. He was a young man named Ki-hyun who had been born on this colony. 60 days, Minji said. "We move fast." The human military bases were the first to empty. Admiral Yunwoo commanded the defense fleet that had been protecting the Outer Reach territories. His ships had been stationed there for 15 years, running patrols and responding to distress calls. Pirates avoided the area because they knew human ships were watching. Yunwoo stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched as his fleet assembled. 37 vessels, from small frigates to massive carriers. "All ships prepare for departure. We're going home." His tactical officer, a woman named Yoonji, looked at him with concern. "Sir, what about the patrol routes? The civilian traffic in this sector depends on our presence." "Not our problem anymore," Hyunwoo said. His voice was flat. "The Council made its choice. We follow orders." One by one, the human ships powered up their faster-than-light drives and vanished. The space they left behind was empty and dark. On the Kryn homeworld, a medical research station began shutting down. The team of human doctors and scientists had been working there for 8 years. They were close to finding a cure for a disease that affected the Kryn species. Very close. Maybe another 6 months of work. Dr. Suho packed up his research. The Kryn administrator who oversaw the facility floated into the lab, her tentacles waving in distress. Please, you cannot leave now. We are so close to a breakthrough. I'm sorry, Suho said. He truly was. He had worked with these people for years. He had attended their cultural festivals. He had learned their language. We have to go, council orders. But my people are dying, thousands every year. I know. Suho handed her a data chip. This is everything we've discovered so far. Maybe your own researchers can finish the work. The Kryn administrator took the chip with a trembling tentacle. She knew her people did not have researchers with this level of expertise. The humans had been their hope. Trade stations emptied next. Doyen had spent 12 years building trade relationships between human merchants and alien species. He knew the shipping routes, the tariffs, the customs regulations for 40 different species. He had negotiated hundreds of contracts. Now he sat in meetings and terminated every single one. But we have a 10-year agreement, a Borkan trade minister said. The crystalline being's surface flickered with confusion. We have invested heavily in infrastructure based on this agreement. The agreement included a termination clause, Doyun said. He pulled up the contract on his display. Section 47. Either party may terminate with 90 days' notice. I am providing that notice now. This will devastate our economy. Human ships carry 60% of our export goods. I understand. I'm sorry. But humanity is no longer part of the Council, and all Council-based agreements must end. The Borkan minister's surface went dark with anger. This is revenge for the vote. You are punishing us. No, Doyen said. We are complying with the Council's decision. You voted to remove us from the Council. We are removing ourselves from all Council obligations. That is what you wanted. Across the galaxy, the pattern repeated. Human peacekeepers left conflict zones. Human engineers shut down stations they had built. Human teachers closed schools. Human aid workers packed up medical supplies and food distribution centers. Some alien species protested. Others mocked the humans, calling it a tantrum. Look at them running away like children, one Thulian broadcaster said on a popular news program. They cannot handle being told no. But a few species, the ones who had worked closely with humans, felt something different: unease, worry. They had not realized how much they depended on human presence until it started disappearing. On a small mining station in the Beta sector, a mixed crew of humans and aliens gathered for a final meal. They had worked together for years. The aliens watched as their human colleagues prepared to leave. "What will we do?" one of them asked. He was a Kirin engineer named Tisk. "You designed half the systems on this station. We don't know how to maintain them." A human engineer named Borum handed him a thick data pad. "This is all the maintenance documentation. Everything is labeled. You should be fine." "Should be? You'll figure it out." Borum shook Tisk's small, furry hand. "You're smart. You'll adapt." But Tisk wasn't sure. None of them were. 60 days into the withdrawal, Minji stood on the landing pad of Kelmar 7 colony. The last human transport ship was boarding. Around her, the remaining alien colonists watched in silence. Some of them were crying. They had built friendships here. They had built lives. "Will you ever come back?" one of them asked. "I don't know," Minji said honestly. "That depends on what the Council decides, and what humanity decides." She boarded the ship. The doors closed, the engines powered up, and the transport lifted into the sky, leaving the colony behind. 90 days after the vote, the last human presence withdrew from Council space. Ships, stations, outposts, all empty. Trade routes went silent. Patrol zones sat unguarded. Research projects stopped. Humanity was gone, and the galaxy was about to learn what that meant. The first attack happened 3 weeks after the human ships left the outer reach. A convoy of Kirin transport vessels was moving through what used to be a safe corridor. They carried food supplies for a colony world that was struggling with crop failures. The pirates came out of nowhere. 5 ships, old but well armed. They surrounded the convoy and demanded all the cargo. The Kirin captain sent out a distress call. In the old days, human patrol ships would have arrived within 20 minutes. The pirates knew this. That was why they had avoided this sector for years. But no human ships came. No one came at all. The pirates took everything. They left the Kirin ships drifting in space, empty and powerless. 2 crew members were killed in the raid. The colony world would not receive its food supplies. People would go hungry. This was just the first attack. Velcor sat in his office at the council station and reviewed the security reports. In the 3 months since humanity's departure, pirate attacks had increased by 340%. 40%. 340. He read the number again, thinking it must be an error. It was not. "How is this possible?" he asked his security staff. One of them, a younger Velthari named Corin, pulled up a tactical map. "Sir, these are the zones where human ships used to patrol. Look at the attack frequency before the humans left. Almost 0. Now look at the current numbers." The map showed red dots spreading like a disease across what used to be safe space. Every red dot was an attack. Velcor counted over 200 in just the past month. "Why are our forces not responding?" "Sir, we don't have enough ships. The human fleet was handling patrol duties for 12 sectors. We only have enough vessels to cover 3 sectors properly." "Then assign more ships." "From where, sir? Every species is responsible for defending their own territory. No one wants to pay for ships to defend someone else's space." Velcor dismissed his staff and sat alone in his office. The pirates were not the only problem. On the Kryn homeworld, the death count was rising. The disease that the human medical team had been close to curing was spreading faster than expected. A new strain had emerged, more aggressive than the previous variants. Sura was one of the leading Kryn medical researchers. She floated in her laboratory, surrounded by equipment that she barely knew how to use. The humans had left all their tools behind, but tools were useless without knowledge. She examined the latest samples and felt her tentacles droop with exhaustion. They had tried to continue the research where the humans left off, but the human approach to medicine was different from Kryn methods. They used techniques and theories that Kryn science had never developed. "How many this week?" she asked her assistant. 4,712 deaths. Projected to reach 6,000 next week. Sura looked at the data chip the human doctor had given them. All the research was there, but it might as well have been written in an alien language, which she supposed it was. The mathematical models made no sense to her. The treatment protocols required equipment they did not have. They needed the humans back. But pride prevented her people from admitting it. The economy was collapsing too. Thane was the trade minister for the Borkan Collective, and he spent his days watching their entire commercial infrastructure fall apart. Human merchant ships had carried goods between hundreds of worlds. They had established regular routes, reliable schedules, fair prices. When they left, other species tried to fill the gap. It was a disaster. Ships arrived late or not at all. Prices doubled, then tripled. Smaller species that depended on trade found themselves cut off. Some of them started running out of essential supplies: food, medicine, fuel. Thane attended emergency meetings every day. Trade ministers from 20 different species, all arguing about who should do what. No one wanted to invest in the infrastructure needed to replace what the humans had built. It was too expensive. The profit margins were too thin. "The humans did this at a loss," one minister said. "They subsidized half these routes. How can we compete with that?" "They did it to gain influence," another argued. "They were building an empire." But Thane was not sure about that anymore. He had reviewed the human trade records. They were public information, available to anyone who asked. The humans really had been operating many routes at a loss. They did it because those routes connected smaller species to the galactic economy. They did it because it helped people. That seemed insane to most species. Why help others if there was no profit? But humans did it anyway. 6 months after the humans left, 3 minor species faced complete collapse. Their economies were gone. Pirates raided them constantly. Disease and food shortages killed thousands. They sent desperate pleas to the council. They needed help. They needed protection. The council held an emergency session. Velcor stood at the central podium and addressed the assembled delegates. "We need to establish new patrol forces for the affected sectors. We need to commit ships and personnel." The chamber was silent. No one spoke. "The Kirin Collective has the most advanced ships," Velcor said. "Can you commit vessels to patrol duty?" The Kirin delegate, a small furry being named Piers, shook his head. "We are already defending our own territory. We cannot spare ships for others." "The Thulian Collective, then. You have a large fleet." The Thulian delegate's bioluminescent skin flickered with annoyance. "Why should we pay to defend species that cannot defend themselves? This is not our responsibility." "Then whose responsibility is it?" Velcor demanded. "It was humanity's responsibility," someone said. "They chose that role. They interfered in everything. Let them come back and fix it." "They will not come back," said a delegate from one of the 6 species that had voted against expulsion. Her name was Kiris, and she was from a small aquatic species called the Minari. "We asked them to leave. They left. Why would they return to help us now?" "We could offer them something. Trade agreements. Territory." "They don't want our territory," Kiris said. "They have everything they need. We were the ones who needed them." The meeting ended with no decisions. No species wanted to spend resources helping others. That was the human approach, and humans were gone. Back in his office, Velcor opened a communication channel. It was time to contact humanity. Just to talk. Just to explore options. The response came back within an hour. It was from a woman named Somin, who identified herself as part of the Human Independent Diplomatic Corps. "Thank you for reaching out," the message said. "However, humanity is no longer part of the Galactic Council and has no obligations to council matters. We wish you well in resolving your current challenges." It was polite, professional, and completely final. Velcor realized something that made his crystalline body feel cold. The humans were not coming back. They were not going to save the Council from its own mistakes. And the galaxy was going to burn because of it. 1 year after the vote, the galaxy was unrecognizable. 3 minor species had fallen completely. Not fallen in battle, just fallen. Their governments collapsed, their economies stopped, their people scattered as refugees, trying to find safety anywhere they could. Pirates controlled entire sectors now. They were not just raiding anymore. They were taking territory, claiming worlds, building their own kingdoms in the lawless dark. Some of them were getting organized, forming alliances, creating fleets that could challenge military forces. In the council chamber, the arguments never stopped. The 51 species that remained were turning on each other. Every meeting devolved into accusations and blame. "This is the Kirin Collective's fault," a Thulian delegate shouted. His skin pulsed angry red. "You have the technology to build patrol ships. You refuse to share it." "Why should we share our technology for free?" Pierce shot back. "The humans gave everything away. Look where that got them. Expelled and forgotten." "The humans are thriving," said Kiris from the Minari delegation. She was one of the 6 who had voted against expulsion. "While we collapse, they prosper." "Then maybe you should leave and join them," someone shouted. The chamber erupted in chaos. Different species shouting in different languages. The translators struggling to keep up. Velcor tried to restore order, but his voice was drowned out. This was what the council had become. A screaming match between species who blamed everyone but themselves. On the Kryn homeworld, the death toll passed 1 million. Sura floated in the hospital ward, watching patients die. The disease had mutated again. It was spreading to other species now. 3 different alien races had reported cases. A pandemic was starting, and no one knew how to stop it. "Send another message to the humans," Sura told her government officials. "Beg them if you must. We need their help." The message went out. It was not the first. The Kryn government had sent 7 previous requests. All of them had received the same response: polite, professional, no. The 8th response was slightly different. It came from a human doctor named Suho, the same one who had worked on the Kryn homeworld. "I cannot return to council space," his message said, "but I have sent you updated research. It is not complete, but it may help. I hope your people find peace." Sura reviewed the data he sent. It was more than he needed to give, much more. He had continued the research on his own, in his free time, because he cared about her people, even after they let his species get expelled from the council. She felt something she had not felt in months, a small spark of hope, and a deep sense of shame. The economy was completely broken now. Thane watched as the Borkan Collective's trade networks collapsed into nothing. Ships sat idle in ports because there was no fuel. Goods rotted in warehouses because there were no ships to move them. Starvation was spreading, not everywhere. The large, powerful species were mostly fine, but the smaller ones, the ones who had depended on the trade networks, were dying. Slowly, quietly, while the council argued about whose fault it was. Thane attended a private meeting with the 6 species who had voted against expulsion. They met in secret because the other species accused them of being human sympathizers. "We need to leave the council," one delegate said. She was from a reptilian species called the Vorin. "This alliance is dead. We should form our own coalition." "And do what?" another asked. "Survive. That is all we can do now." They talked for hours. In the end, they made a decision. The 6 loyal species would withdraw from the Galactic Council and form their own alliance, and they would reach out to humanity, not to beg, not to demand, but to offer friendship, trade, partnership, everything the Council had rejected. Back in the main Council chamber, Velcor received a message that made his crystalline body feel like it was cracking. The 6 species were leaving, formally withdrawing their membership. The council was down to 45 members now, and more would follow. He could feel it. In desperation, the council sent another message to humanity. This one was different. It was an apology. "We recognize that we may have acted hastily," the message said. "We understand now that humanity's presence brought stability to the galaxy. We would like to discuss the possibility of renewed membership, under better terms, terms that recognize humanity's contributions." The response came from Soman again, but this time, it was longer. The Galactic Council voted to expel humanity through a democratic process. We accepted that decision and honored it. We have withdrawn completely from all council obligations and territories. We have built new relationships with species who value mutual respect and partnership. Humanity has moved forward. We suggest the council do the same. Velcor read the message 3 times. It was polite, it was reasonable, and it was absolutely final. "They are not coming back," he said to his empty office. "We destroyed the one thing holding us together, and they are not coming back." Some council members refused to accept this. A group of the more aggressive species, led by the Thulian Collective, proposed a solution. "We force them to return," their leader said at the next council meeting. "We have legal claim to the territories where humans used to operate. We send fleets to human space and demand they resume their obligations." The chamber went silent. Everyone understood what this meant: war. Kiris, who had not yet officially withdrawn her species, stood up. "You have no idea what you are proposing. Humanity did not become the galaxy's protectors by accident. They are the most effective military force in known space. They have been holding back for decades, playing by council rules. If you attack them, those rules no longer apply." They are one species against many, the Thulian leader argued. They are one species that has been preparing for war since before they left their own planet, Kyrus said. Every human ship is armed. Every human colony has defenses. Their civilians train for combat. You think you understand human military capability because you have seen their peacekeeping forces. You have seen them restrained, following regulations, protecting others. You have never seen them unleashed. She let that sink in. And even if you somehow won, even if you conquered human space, what then? You force them to help you? You think they will protect the species that attack them? You will turn the galaxy's best defenders into your worst enemies. The vote to attack humanity failed. Barely. Many species still wanted to try, but the damage was done. The fact that they had even considered it proved how desperate they had become. Daejin was a human intelligence officer. He sat in a monitoring station in human space, listening to intercepted council communications. What he heard made him sad, not angry, just sad. They were falling apart. The species who had called humans aggressive and dangerous were now threatening each other. The council that had claimed humans disrupted peace was descending into chaos, and they still did not understand why. He prepared a report for President Somin. She needed to know that war was a possibility, small possibility, but real. Humanity needed to be ready, not to attack, but to defend, because the council was dying, and dying things were dangerous, especially when they refused to admit they were dying at all. 18 months after humanity's departure, the Galactic Council was dying, not slowly, not quietly. It was collapsing in real time, and everyone could see it happening. 7 more species had fallen, some to pirates, some to disease, some to economic collapse, some to all 3 at once. Their populations were scattered, their governments were gone, their worlds were empty or burning. The 6 species who had voted to keep humanity formed their own alliance. They called it the Partnership Coalition. Within weeks of forming it, they established formal treaties with humanity, trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, cultural exchange programs. Those 6 species were stable, protected, thriving even. While the rest of the galaxy burned, the Council was down to 34 members. 34 species trying to hold together an alliance that had already shattered. Every meeting was an exercise in futility. They had no solutions, no resources, no hope. Then the Council sent one final message to humanity. Not a request, not a demand, an apology. The Galactic Council acknowledges its error in judgment, the message said. We failed to recognize the vital role humanity played in galactic stability. We acted in fear and pride. We were wrong. On behalf of the Council and the billions of beings who suffer from our mistake, we ask forgiveness. We ask for help, please. The response came 3 days later. Taemin would address the Council in person. The Council chamber felt empty now. Half the seats were vacant. The species that remained looked tired, defeated. Velcor stood at his position and watched as the human delegation entered. Taemin walked in first, followed by Yuna. They looked exactly the same as they had 18 months ago. Calm, professional, unhurried. They took their seats in the human section, not as members, as observers, guests. Velcor began the session. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I thank you for coming. We know we have no right to ask anything of you, but we are asking anyway. We need help. Taemin stood. The chamber fell silent. Everyone wanted to hear what he would say. When humanity joined the Galactic Council 43 years ago, we were excited, Taemin began. His voice was calm but carried easily through the space. We thought we had found a community of species working together for peace and prosperity. We wanted to be part of that. He paused. What we found instead was a galaxy that had become comfortable, stagnant, species that had grown used to a certain way of doing things and refused to change. But we tried. We contributed. We worked hard, and when we saw problems, we fixed them. Yuna pulled up a display. Numbers and data filled the screens around the chamber. In 43 years of council membership, humanity maintained 847 active peacekeeping missions. We protected colonies that could not protect themselves. We responded to distress calls in sectors where no one else would go. We did this at our own expense. We lost 3,012 human soldiers protecting alien worlds. The numbers kept scrolling. Each one was a project, a mission, a life saved or lost. We established 217 trade routes that operated at a loss. We did this to connect smaller species to the galactic economy, to give them opportunities they would not have otherwise. We subsidized 70% of medical research for diseases that did not affect humans. We built infrastructure on 46 worlds that were not ours. We provided disaster relief to 32 species over the years. The chamber was completely silent now. Many delegates were seeing these numbers for the first time. We did all of this while you called us aggressive, while you said we interfered, while you accused us of building an empire. Taemin's voice remained calm. No anger, just facts. You called us warmongers, but in 43 years humanity never started a single war. We ended 7. We prevented at least 20 more from starting. He looked around the chamber. You wanted to know why pirate attacks increased by 340% after we left? Because we were stopping them, every day, in sectors you did not even know needed protection. You wonder why trade collapsed, because we were carrying the goods that no one else wanted to carry. The unprofitable routes, the dangerous ones. We did it because those species needed access to trade. The disease spreading through the Kryn homeworld and beyond? We were 6 months from a cure. We would have shared it freely. We always shared our medical advances freely. Yuna changed the display. It showed a comparison. Human space was marked in blue. It was stable, growing, prosperous. Council space was marked in red. It looked like a wound spreading across the galaxy. This is what the galaxy looks like now, Taemin said. The 6 species who chose to partner with us are stable and protected. They are marked in green. Everyone else is struggling or dying. He let that sink in. You voted to remove us because you thought we were the problem. You thought the galaxy would be better without us. You were wrong. Velcor felt like his crystalline structure was cracking. Everything Taemin said was true, all of it, and everyone in this chamber knew it. We are prepared to offer humanitarian aid, Taemin continued. Food, medicine, refugee support. We will send these resources to civilian populations who need them, because human nature does not allow us to watch others suffer when we can help. But we will not rejoin the council. We will not restore your economy. We will not patrol your space. We will not solve your problems for you. Why not? Someone asked. It was Sura, the Kryn researcher. She had been granted permission to attend this session. If you care about civilian lives, why not help us fully? Because you need to learn how to help yourselves, Taemin said. For millennia, the Council has operated on the idea that the strong do not help the weak unless they get something in return. Humanity rejected that idea. We helped because it was right, and you punished us for it. Now you are learning what happens when the strong choose not to help, when every species looks out only for themselves, when no one wants to pay the cost of protecting others. He looked directly at Sura. It leads to this, to collapse, to death, to chaos. Yuna spoke for the first time. Humanity offered the galaxy a different path. We showed you that cooperation without exploitation was possible. That strength could be used to protect instead of dominate. That progress benefits everyone. You rejected that path. You chose to return to the old ways. But the old ways do not work anymore, Taemin said. The galaxy has changed. Threats have grown. Challenges have become more complex. You need cooperation. True cooperation. Not alliances based on profit or fear. Partnerships based on mutual respect and shared purpose. He gestured to the mostly empty chamber. This council could have been that. Could have been something great. Humanity tried to make it great. You stopped us. Velcor finally spoke. What can we do? How do we fix this? You start by being honest about what went wrong, Taman said. You acknowledge that the council expelled humanity not because we were dangerous, but because we made you uncomfortable. We challenged your traditions. We refused to accept injustice. We held up a mirror and showed you things you did not want to see. Then you decide what you want to be. Do you want to be a council that works together for everyone's benefit? Or do you want to continue being a collection of species who only care about themselves? He picked up his papers. Humanity has made our choice. We built something new. The partnership coalition is growing. Species who value cooperation are joining. Species who understand that strength means protecting others, not exploiting them. You are welcome to join us, but not as you are now, not as a council that operates on self-interest and pride. If you want to be part of what we are building, you need to change. Fundamentally change. Taman looked at each delegate in turn. The humanitarian aid will arrive in 3 weeks. Food, medicine, and supplies for civilian populations. After that, humanity will step back. What happens next is up to you. He nodded to Yuna. They stood and walked toward the exit. Velcor called out, "Will you come back, ever?" Taman paused at the door. We never truly left. We are right here. We have always been right here. The question is whether you will join us in building something better or continue down the path that led to this. Then they were gone. The council chamber sat in silence. No one spoke. No one moved. They all understood what had just happened. Humanity had delivered the reckoning. They had shown the council the truth of what they had lost, what they had destroyed, what they could have been, and they had left the choice of what to do next entirely in the council's hands. 5 years later, human space had expanded significantly. The partnership coalition included 34 species. They had built a new system of cooperation based on the principles humanity had tried to teach the old council. The original Galactic Council no longer existed. Some species joined the partnership, others formed smaller alliances. A few remained isolated, still clinging to old ideas. The galaxy was different now, not perfect, but better. Because one species had been willing to walk away rather than be part of something broken. And in walking away, they had shown everyone what could be built instead. Taman sat in his office and looked at reports from across the partnership coalition. Trade was flowing. Peacekeeping missions were collaborative efforts. Medical research was shared freely. They were building the galaxy humanity had always imagined. It had cost them, but it was worth it. Because sometimes the only way to fix something broken is to walk away and build something new.